How much does it cost to live in the best city in the world? Denver, Colorado. Well, that's what we're going to take a deep dive into today. We're going to look at everything from housing and rental prices to utilities, healthcare costs, and what it compares like to the other big cities. Over the last few years, as we know, housing prices, utility costs, everything is just through the roof. But is it really as expensive as everyone thinks it is? And I stumbled across a really cool tool actually, which I'm going to show you at the end of this. So if you're not living in the city of Denver or you're considering moving out of the city to somewhere else in the country, we're going to be able to break down the different cost comparisons in real time based on what your income is. I can't wait to show you. Welcome back. I'm Alex Saldana, and on this channel, we cover all things Denver. Eat, sleep, play, work, we got you covered. And I've worked with hundreds of home buyers and sellers relocating to or around the Denver metro area. So if you got any questions, just feel free, pick up the phone, nights, days, weekends, I got you covered. So let's just jump right into it. We really can't talk about the cost of living in Denver without talking about the job market, which is incredibly strong here, and it has been for a long time. I'm surrounded with the construction industry, whether we're flipping houses or my wife that owns a landscaping company. So I know firsthand the trials and tribulations that come along with hiring somebody in our market right now, and it's rather unbelievable. But I want to show this to you in real time because I get a lot of people coming to me when I put out a post out there that says, "Hey, you can get paid 20 to 25 bucks an hour in Denver right now today with only a couple of phone calls. Heck, probably one phone call depending on your industry." And so many people don't believe me, but I want you to see this. So what we're looking at here is just on indeed.com, and this is just showing the jobs in Denver, and I just put in construction. Now, as we scroll down, we're going to see the usual stuff, truck driver, class D from 18 bucks an hour, master electrician, sure, but that's a little bit more specified, 80 to 120 a year full-time. Construction project engineer, 65,000 a year, commercial plumbing foreman and installers, 27 to 38 bucks an hour. Cabinet mill workers, 25 to $32 an hour, and this is for somebody to install cabinets. Look at this one, not a paid ad, entry-level construction tech willing to train. 20 to $25 an hour. So it's not a joke when I tell everybody that it is easy to get a job here starting at $20 to $25 an hour. And what that equates to, even $20 an hour, which is at the low end, which I do see fast food joints. Torchy's Tacos right around the corner from me is starting at 20 bucks an hour. Chick-fil-A I think is 18 or 19 an hour. They're still paying close to 20 bucks an hour, which equates to just over $41,000 a year for a low entry position in the Denver market. And today in our market, our unemployment rate is 2.9%. And I don't really think it can get any lower. I mean, there's always going to be a certain percentage of people that cannot get work or really just aren't trying. And this leads us right into what the average household income in, which today is about $112,000 per household in the city of Denver. Now that seems awfully high, but at the same time, if there's two people working in the household making north of about $25 an hour each, that gets you there pretty quickly. But this is also a super important note to make if you are not here in Denver, you're thinking about moving here, or heck, even if you are here and you're looking for a change of jobs, is the difference between white collar employment versus blue collar employment. Look at how many more people have a white collar job versus a blue collar job. And this just goes back to having not enough people in the service industries in the construction fields. So if you're looking here from out of state, there's a huge opportunity in anything construction to make a lot of money. Great. So the average household income here is $112,000. We've already established that it's super easy to get a job here in Denver. But if you're looking to rent here, which is about 50% of the population, the average rent is going to sit around $2,000 a month, where a one-bedroom place is going to run you about $1,700 and a two-bedroom is going to run about $2,300 a month. So it is not a cheap rental market, and we sit above the national average quite a bit for rental prices. Well, what if you aren't a renter and you're looking to buy? What is the average income in Denver going to actually be able to buy you? Well, what I want you to see here is that I've plugged it in our calculator, and I'll have the link down below in case you want to use this for your own purposes to put in your numbers. But the average annual income of $112,000 with a down payment of $50,000, on a 30-year loan, which today's rates are about 6.75%, calculating in the property taxes, which this is one of the huge benefits that not many people talk about, is that our property taxes are the third lowest in the country. So more of your dollar goes towards home ownership versus paying for property taxes, and then calculating in homeowners insurance of say 2,000 a year. We're not calculating in condo or HOA fees here. That's going to afford you a home up to $510,000 in the city of Denver. So, what does $510,000 in Denver buy you today? Well, let's take a look at some properties. Now, I drew a map around the 470 loop. So, we're talking all of Denver metro area because Denver is not that big of a city. So, to get from one side to the other, even during rush hour traffic, 30 minutes is kind of a long time. But what we can see are a handful of pockets. So just everything under 510,000 for single family homes. And you can see there's this pocket here in southwest Denver and parts of Lakewood. And you have a pocket here in northeast Aurora, southeast Aurora, and then kind of a smattering over the northwest part of Denver. Now, if you're going to be a stickler and see, all right, what is it actually in Denver alone? Let's forget about the other cities and the surrounding area. So what you're going to find for around 500,000 in the southwest part of town is a house like this with a beautifully updated exterior with absolutely no interior to it. The floors, the drywall is getting done. I mean, this kind of looks like a problem. So obviously, at 500,000, this probably isn't going to be on the top of your list, but in this neighborhood, I know homes sell for well into the 600s for this size here. This just looks like a flip gone bad, to be honest with you. But kind of funny as we're looking stuff up because, man, that exterior photo had me for a second. Now, for a more realistic house that's actually livable, we have this one once again in the southwest part of Denver, and you've got an updated exterior, updated interior, looks decent throughout the house, updated kitchen. Now, something like this isn't going to be a huge house. This is going to be 1,100 square feet here and a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. So if we go to the northeast part of town, just by a little bit, so if you look here, these streets that are a diagonal, that's downtown essentially. So this isn't very far, just 5-minute drive to get to most of downtown Denver. We can see there's only a few houses for sale. And so we've got this one at 488,000, and it's just kind of a small, plain Jane, been updated a little bit type of house. And this is a 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, so not very large. Now we can go even further northeast, and that takes us into Green Valley Ranch, which is a development built a couple of decades ago. This is where Denver International Airport is. So Denver's airport is way out of the city, in case you don't know. It's quite a long drive there from anywhere in the city. And we can see in Green Valley Ranch, 500,000 is all of a sudden going to start getting you what feels like a real house. And most of these were built in the 90s, so nothing's going to be terribly old, just an everyday decent house for sale. Now, this one is 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. So more of your typical everyday American household. And then if we just go east to downtown Denver, something like this, a small brick ranch, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, updated throughout, but really close to nightlife and everything you could possibly want if you're in your 20s or 30s. Now, if having a single family home isn't your thing, maybe you're a person who wants to live in a condo or a townhouse, you're going to have quite a bit more options for this price range. And we can even get directly downtown in the heart of Denver for under 500,000. You're going to get something similar to this condo, which is a great updated condo with a pool on its roof and a ton of amenities right in the heart of the city. And if you want somewhere with more of a cooler, funkier, younger, hip vibe to it, you can head a little bit more towards Cap Hill, and you have a bunch of places in the 300s actually. We have a lot of old Victorian mansions that were converted into condos, but you can get a place like this. This is in the 400s, moderately updated, but in a really cool part of town, really cool feel to it, really great building, and you're going to be surrounded by a lot of younger people who are into the nightlife that Denver has to offer. And maybe if you're working in DTC, which is a huge hub of a lot of our tech jobs, you can come further south, and there's going to be a lot more newer buildings down there like this one, which is going to be fairly well updated, fairly new building, going to be a little bit higher HOAs in general to pay for all of the amenities, but getting a little bit further outside of the city, stuff like this is easily within reach. Now, as for some of the smaller costs, let's take utilities, for example. We're going to be on average anywhere from 15 to 30% lower than most other states out there. And food costs on average, if you like to go out to restaurants, we're going to run anywhere from 10 to 20% more than the national average to go out to eat. For transportation costs, of course, it's going to depend on where you live, where you work. Our public transportation here is not great. You've really got to live close to the city to be able to take advantage of most of the public transportation. So really having a car is kind of a must. Now the good news is if you are driving everywhere, our gas here does tend to be cheaper than the national average. Now this one I was a little bit surprised on when I read the stats on what the healthcare costs are in Colorado and Denver in specific. We are ranked one of the healthiest cities in the country year after year after year. However, our healthcare costs on average do tend to run about 12 to 15% higher than the national average. So overall, we're a little bit cheaper in some things like gas and utilities, but we're going to be more expensive in housing in general versus a lot of other cities out there. But there's a lot to take into consideration when you live anywhere, and it's really hard to determine how expensive somewhere else is in comparison to where you're at. This is where I found these really awesome tools, and I want to take you through and show you what I found. So that way, if you are looking to move here from another city or looking to move to another city from here, this breaks down so many detailed costs. It is incredible. Check this out. So the first thing we're looking at here actually is on Redfin's website. And it shows you the migration patterns of your city, where people are moving there from and where people are moving to out of your city. So what I noticed here, and this was absolutely fascinating, and I wanted to see how we stacked up to other places, but you can see on this, the biggest migration out of Denver is actually going to Chicago, my hometown, my stomping grounds, by leaps and bounds more, by 600% more than anywhere else, followed by Phoenix, followed by other cities in Colorado, followed by many places in Florida, Tampa, Miami, Sarasota, Orlando, and then Kansas City. So I wanted to see, because you hear about it all the time, Denver has gotten way out of control, prices are through the roof. Well, let's see where people are moving to. Are they actually moving to cheaper places? And this is where I found this amazing website, Metro Denver EDC, that talks about the cost of living. And what you can do is put in, let's say, the average household income, which is 112,000 in Denver. And then you can only put moving from instead of moving to. You can only put moving to as being Denver because it's showing Denver's cost of living, but you just kind of work the numbers backwards. So this is fascinating. So let's take Chicago, which is the biggest place people are moving to from Denver, and see which one is actually more expensive. So what it actually does is it actually calculates out what the average income would be from here to whatever other city you're looking at. What it breaks down, and this is what I love. If you move to, let's say, Chicago from Denver, what are you going to be paying? Now, this is where it gets really powerful. So we have to work this backwards, remember. So if you're moving to Chicago from Denver, how much more or less are things going to cost you? Well, what this says is that if you move to Chicago from Denver, groceries are going to cost you 10.5% more. Housing is going to cost you 10.5% more. Same with utilities. Transportation is going to cost you 20% more. Healthcare, 12.5% more. And then miscellaneous costs, which I don't actually know what's involved in that, it's going to be a little bit less in Chicago than it is here in Denver. And what this does is it breaks down all the different costs. If you want to look up the average price for a steak in Chicago versus Denver, they pay more for steak. How about ground beef? Same there. And it breaks everything down: coffee, sugar, ibuprofen, for crying out loud, home prices, and it calculates all this stuff in along with property taxes and everything else to say which one would be more expensive to live in. And in this case, it's more expensive to live in Chicago than it is Denver. All right. What else was on this list? Phoenix, Arizona is next. Let's see. Is Phoenix, Arizona more or less expensive than living in Denver? Let's take a look. So if you're moving to Phoenix from Denver, groceries are going to cost you 5% more in Phoenix. Housing is going to cost you almost 10% less. So Phoenix does have us beat quite a bit there. And housing, as we know, is one of the biggest expenses you can have. Utilities are going to cost you 15% more in Phoenix. Transportation, 6% more. Healthcare's 6% less. Miscellaneous costs. This is a big one, 17% less in Phoenix than it will in Denver, Colorado. Once again, though, I don't know what's involved in that miscellaneous costs, but something to look into for sure. And then once again, breaks down how much things cost on average in Phoenix versus Denver. Now, let's take a look at some of the Florida places. So we've got, let's just take Miami, Florida. I know that best because everybody talks about how inexpensive Florida is in comparison to everywhere else because they don't have any state income tax. But let's take a look. If you were moving to Miami from Denver, you would pay 21% more for groceries in Miami. Holy cow, that's a big number. Housing is going to cost you 7.7% more in Miami than it is in Denver. Utilities are going to cost you 19% more in Miami than Denver. Transportation will cost 7% more. The only thing that's going to cost you less is going to be healthcare costs in Florida, well, Miami in particular, versus Denver. So, absolutely fascinating. So, if you're considering moving here from out of state, it's worthwhile to look this up. Once again, I'll put the link in the description below for this amazing website to kind of check things out. I'm going to be using it a whole lot because I get a lot of flack from people talking about how expensive it is to live here in Denver. Well, this breaks down just about every possible category to tell you if that's actually true or not, because there's so many more variables than just housing prices. I have friends that have moved here from Chicago, and just to give you an example, the difference in property taxes is so great from Chicago to Denver that selling a $350,000 house in Chicago, your mortgage payment for that priced house can be the same roughly as a $500,000 house here in Denver. It's a $150,000 difference, but the mortgage payment is the same. Why? Because property taxes are that much more expensive in somewhere like Chicago. So you really got to take in everything into account on what the cost of living is from where you are to where you want to go, comparing apples to apples to find out which place actually makes the most sense, along with what is the average income that people earn there. You may move to a more inexpensive city for a lot of things, but if the average household income is 60, 70,000, does that stack up with the rest of your expenses and what you can buy? And if you're not sure what you can afford, I'm going to invite you to watch this video up here that goes over the different loan types and how much it actually takes out of pocket to buy a house, because it might be a lot less than you think.